You're watching our special show on the impact of the 2G scam, the fallout as we await its crucial verdict tomorrow. Rajeev Chandrasekhar, coming back to you. If I could specifically ask you about what the 2G scam has meant for the telecom industry. One, of course, is the fact that we've seen significant consolidation. The weaker hands have, on account of the bloodletting, been out of the system. That's part of the cleansing that you spoke of. But beyond consolidation, what's been the big shift that was forced upon the telecom sector on account of the 2G scam?
You know, the day in 2012 when the 122 licenses were cancelled by the Supreme Court, Shireen, following, months of people like me agitating in Parliament, it sent one message to the investment community all around the world, that India is not a banana republic, and tying up with Indian corporates who just say they have connections and contacts with the politicians or the minister of the day is not what is the secret for success. It is really about tying up with companies that are capable, companies that have competitive advantages and strengths in running a technology business. And you saw those 122 licenses that had a whole series of names that had no business being in telecom, except for the fact that they had proximity and contacts with certain politicians. So the biggest message, in my opinion, and I'm heavily invested emotionally in the telecom sector, is that post-2012, one message that went out all around the world, whether it's the US or Sweden or Norway or Japan, was that when you pick your partners in India, pick partners whose main competitive advantage is that they will adhere to the laws, they will play the game by the rules, and they will have competitive advantages in marketing and technology innovation, rather than how many dinners you can have with the minister of the day or the secretary of the day.
All right, Rajeev, before I let you go now, the verdict of course, is expected tomorrow. And I would imagine that it will end up being much more of a political event as opposed to an event that has a significant impact on the corporate sector, because I think a large chunk of the impact on the corporate sector has already played out. But once the verdict is in, what do you think is likely to be the immediate fallout?
No, I think it is, it's 5 years in the making. It will serve as a reminder for those who have forgotten what happened in those days, whether you are a politician, whether you're a bureaucrat, or whether you are an investor or an entrepreneur. It will serve as a good reminder that don't take shortcuts in how you do what you do, because at the end of the day, these shortcuts come back and haunt you in manners that are, criminal and will dismantle everything that you have. So stick to the game of playing by the rules, compete fairly, and don't use politics as a means to favor anybody. And that.
So the other message, don't take shortcuts, and this will act as a reminder. Rajan Matthew, let me put that to you. What kind of closure does the telecom industry expect from this verdict tomorrow?
So, for example, you can take the case of Aircel in terms of what was going on vis-a-vis their consolidation with Arcom. That whole thing was kept in hiatus until such time as the court could make some decision as to the involvement of some of the parties in the Aircel matter and the grant of their 2G spectrum. So that was an example in terms of having an impact. Obviously, some of the players that were impacted by this have already withdrawn from the market. People like Etisalat have left. There are residual companies like Telenor and Videocon, which are, one has already left, Videocon has left, and of course Telenor is in the process of leaving. So bringing final closure to the grant of licenses to these 5 folks who came into the market, I think sends a very clear message in terms of the FDI that will now come in. It sends a message to investors. It sends a message to those people who've invested. It sends a message in terms of the transparency with which this business is going to go forward. And I think that's very, very critical when we are looking to invite up to 50,000 crore rupees of investments in this sector going forward. So the transparency that hopefully will come, the strength of the judiciary and the judicial process are all critical factors as we go forward.
All right, Rajan Matthew, appreciate you joining us. With that, let me get final comments from you then, Mr. Ranina, as well as Mr. Sen. What will the verdict tomorrow mean in terms of providing closure to what has really caused a political earthquake in this country? Mr. Ranina, let me start by asking you.
Well, I hope there's a closure tomorrow. My problem is that there will not be a closure tomorrow, because even when the verdict comes, these companies will then find ways of going in appeal. I don't think they are going to be satisfied with this, and therefore I think the litigation will continue. The real issue is what is the penalties, what are the prosecution is going to be launched. That also will have to be seen after the verdict comes. But I don't think there'll be a closure, because there will be further litigation. This court decision will be challenged right up to the Supreme Court.
Okay, Mr. Sen, would you agree with that? This will not be the end of the road. In fact, litigation is expected to continue.
And not quite that way. Yes, appeal is their right and they will appeal. But just remember, the trauma of prosecution is huge. 5 years, corporate honchos, highly placed ministers, members of parliament, secretary to government are facing criminal prosecution. Yeah. This will be a lesson, I'm sure, to others who venture into this sort of quagmire. And therefore, I think there will be a closure. We might have some cleaner governance for some time, both in the corporate sector and in the government. You are not safe anymore. If you get into this, you can't escape. That alone will keep people away from corruption to a certain extent. Of course, filing an appeal and trying to get to the Supreme Court is a matter of their right, and will go. But a closure in the sense, some people inclined to corruption, inclined to take a shortcut, may think twice before venturing into this area. To that extent,
all right,
the CBI investigation and the prosecution and the court trial will have done its work.
Well, Mr. Sen, Rajan Matthew, Rajeev Chandrasekhar and Mr. Ranina, appreciate you joining us here on the eve of the 2G verdict to talk to us and analyze the impact of the 2G scam, the fallout. Hopefully, we are moving towards cleaner governance, both political as well as corporate. And of course, we'll be right back with you here on CNBC TV18 at 10:30 a.m. tomorrow morning as the 2G trial court delivers its verdict in the matter. From all of us here, good evening. Thanks for watching.